Hey everyone, this is Randy from BibleBuyingGuide.com. Today I'm taking a look at the NASB Heritage Bible in the Passaggio setting from Zondervan. This one is a genuine leather. It's actually buffalo leather, water buffalo in blue. Here are the specs. This is a 10-point font, verse by verse format. So this one is a little different from the last one I looked at. That box, I want to talk about that for a second because that box is extra thick. I like that. I don't usually gush over a box, but now what I like to do, just a quick insight into my daily reading habits. I like to take a thick box like this and push it like that and set it like that. This has a rough texture, so I can use it as my Bible stand, and I just set my Bible right there and I read. So anyway, don't know if that's going to tear that box over time, but that's what I do anyway. So anyway, this is the genuine leather, and I really wish they would call it something besides that because it's better than genuine leather. It really is. So we're talking about water buffalo, and it has a little bit of a grain to it, some texture in there, perimeter stitching, 5 spine hubs with gold printing on the spine, and then the liner is a heavy-duty vinyl, and it's blue, with the gold gilt line. There's their edge lining. Now this one is Smythe sewn, but it is also overcast. Has overcast stitching. I'll show you what I mean. Not sure if you can see it on camera, but you'll see 2 lines of stitching here. You'll see the regular Smythe sewing, which is what that large sewing is, but then beside it, you'll see tight stitching that goes all the way down. And it's on the side of the page. All the way down, that stitching right there. So what that does is protects the first signature and gives extra strength to the front. This one does not have it in the back. Most Bibles don't. When they do include overcast stitching, they don't usually put it in the back. So anyway, this is a hand-sized Bible. I love the size. This is my favorite size for a large Bible. It's this right here, personal size, large print. And this is large print. They do consider it a 10-point font. The front, we have several presentation pages on the thick, semi-glossy paper. And then we have our regular Bible paper. This is the 36 GSM European paper. This is some of my favorite paper. This is printed in China. So here's our layout. This is a Passaggio setting. So Passaggio is a musical term that just means changing of registers in your voice. Kind of like this. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, you don't want me to do that. But the text is 10-point black letter with between 12 and 14 words per line. The text is brought out onto the flat part of the page because of the wide inner margin. The outer margin is 3/4 inch. So this is good for small notes if you want to write references or something there. The footnotes are placed in the footer. They don't include references where something is quoted from. That's the one thing I would like to see added. I'll show you what I mean. If we find a reference, like right here, this is in all caps to show that it's an Old Testament quote. But there's nothing to tell you where the quote is from. So you don't know that just by looking at it. You have to find that in an external resource. That's one thing I'd like to see added to the footnotes. And then we have gold highlights for the page numbers and the section headings, the line between the text and the footnotes. The book name and chapter numbers are printed in the outer margin vertically. So you have to turn the Bible sideways to read it, both sides. And then when we do have a poetic setting, it switches to a double column. So that is the Passaggio part of this. Single column to double column, changing of registers. Now I've seen a lot of questions. Why is poetry in double column when it should be the one that's in single column? The reason for this is that we have the advantage of the single column prose. We don't lose space because of the poetry. In this case, this one would come out to here, and then that one would be down there. We would end up losing quite a bit of this. Double column poetry saves on white space, and that saves on page count. I didn't mention it before, but you can see there are blue under gold on that paper. Also, we have bold verse numbers for paragraphs, the beginning of paragraphs. So this Bible is great for reading if you're okay with reading a verse by verse setting. I personally prefer to read a paragraph setting, but I do like a verse by verse setting, and I prefer this one for preaching. I like preaching from this Bible. Book start on a new page. The paper is highly opaque, easy to turn. The text is line matched. In other words, the print is on the same place on both sides of the page. There's our gold highlights. And our ribbons are gold and navy to match the text. In the back, we have several tables. We have the miracles of Jesus, parables of Jesus, perspectives from the Bible, and it's things like, what to read when the future seems hopeless, you need comfort, tempted to neglect worshiping in church, and it gives you scripture. Prayers of the Bible, and this includes the Old Testament, from the Psalms, prophets, Jesus, New Testament, Paul, and then we have our Zondervan maps printed on the semi-gloss thick paper, and they're annotated. And that's what we have in this Bible. That's the tools. I love the size of this. It's easy to hold and carry and read. It's a little heavy, but not too bad. Let's take a look. 2 pounds, 7.4 ounces. And our overall size, 5 3/4, 8 3/8, but just over 1.5 at the spine. I'm not going to compare this one to a lot of Bibles because there's not a lot like this, and I don't have a lot of hand size NASBs, but I will compare it to the previous Passaggio that I already reviewed. This one is the large print thin line. So here's how they compare. The large print thin line is a paragraph edition. I prefer reading from this one, but I prefer preaching from the Heritage. So there's how they look. So that's my quick look at the NASB Heritage Passaggio setting. I do like this Bible a lot. I like the paper. I like the print quality. I like the verse by verse for preaching. Some of the poetry does have one word, which I find a little bit difficult to read, but a lot of them don't, like this one does not. But when you're reading this, you go from prose, poetry, prose, poetry, prose, poetry, prose, poetry, prose, poetry. So there's a little bit of switching back and forth. That does highlight the type of text that we have. And this one does seem to be divided in good places for the most part. I like the way this is divided. That's the way poetry should look in a double column, in my opinion. That's easier to read. It just looks better. You do have a few with 1 or 2 words, but most of them are not. Most of them look really good. Poetry's looking good in this. I can't complain about that. That looks really good. Yep, I like that. I think they've done a good job with this poetry in this one. So, that's a quick look at the NASB Heritage Bible Passaggio setting. This is the 1995 edition of the NASB. Zondervan did supply this in exchange for an honest review, and my honest review is this is a well-designed and well-made Bible. I like the materials. I like the design. I think they've done a good job with this one. It's excellent for preaching, and it's excellent for study. Materials are, that's good leather. It stays open well. I didn't really show that, but no issues staying open. Tries to close a touch there, but that's because it's cold in this room. Yeah, no, it stays open, no trouble at all. So yeah, I like this Bible. I recommend this one. So if you're interested in an NASB, a 95 edition of the NASB for preaching, for carry, for reading, for study, that's a good choice. I'll place a link in the notes where you can make a purchase if you're interested. And also, I'll link to the written review at BibleBuyingGuide.com, where I always go into more detail about the Bible. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.